There's a life that belongs to you, not the life you are currently living necessarily, not the life you have built around the expectations of the people who formed you, not the life that made sense given who everyone around you needed you to be, but a life that is genuinely yours. That reflects what you actually value rather than what you were taught to value. That is built around what genuinely matters to you rather than what you learned should matter. That feels from the inside like genuine inhabitation rather than like a performance of what a life is supposed to look like. Most people have never lived that life, not because it was not available to them, but because the subconscious programs installed in their early years, the definitions of success and worth and what a good life looks like that were absorbed before they had any capacity to evaluate them, became the blueprint. And the blueprint they were given was not theirs. It belonged to their parents, to their culture, to the specific historical and economic and relational circumstances of the environment that formed them. And they have been building from it ever since, faithfully, precisely, often successfully by external measures. And with the specific quality of quiet wrongness that is the subconscious's way of saying, this is not the life. This is someone else's life. And your subconscious has known it all along. Today we find out how that happened and what to do about it. To understand how you came to be living someone else's life, we need to understand the specific mechanism through which other people's definitions of a good life become your own subconscious operating system. It begins, as everything begins in the subconscious, in childhood, in the theta download window when everything entered without filter. When the child absorbed not just the explicit lessons, but the implicit ones, not just what was said, but what was valued, not just what was taught, but what was celebrated and what was dismissed. What kind of success generated warmth and approval in the people whose love the child most needed? And what kind of success generated confusion or discomfort or the specific cooling that signals disapproval without words? The child who grew up in a family where financial security was the primary definition of a successful life absorbed that definition as their own, not as one possible definition among many, as the definition as what success means, as what a good life looks like. The child who grew up in a family where a specific profession was the mark of genuine achievement absorbed that. The child who grew up in a culture where marriage and family were the primary measures of a life well lived absorbed that. The child who grew up in an environment where intellectual achievement was the only form of success that generated genuine respect absorbed that. None of these definitions are wrong in themselves. Some of them may genuinely align with what the adult who carries them actually values, but many of them do not. And the adult who is building a life according to a definition of success that was given to them before they were old enough to evaluate it is building someone else's life with genuine effort, with real sacrifice, with the sincere belief that this is what they want. Because the subconscious cannot tell the difference between a value that was chosen and a value that was absorbed. It simply executes. How do you know if you are living someone else's life? There are specific signals, specific qualities of inner experience that the subconscious generates when the life being lived does not match the life that is genuinely yours. The first signal is the Sunday feeling, the specific quality of low-grade dread that arrives on Sunday evenings, not from exhaustion, but from the prospect of returning to a life that feels slightly wrong in ways that are difficult to articulate. This is not the ordinary tiredness of someone who works hard. It is the specific exhaustion of someone who is spending their energy on a life that is not theirs. The second signal is the achievement that does not satisfy. You reach the goal. You achieve the thing that the blueprint told you would feel like success. And instead of the satisfaction you expected, there is a flatness, a quiet question that arrives just as the achievement is confirmed. Is this it? This is the subconscious recognizing that the achievement belonged to someone else's definition of success, not to yours. The third signal is the life you imagine in the quiet moments, the version of yourself that appears in daydreams, in the unguarded moments before sleep, in the specific quality of aliveness that arises when you are briefly doing something that has nothing to do with the blueprint. That version is not a fantasy. It is the subconscious showing you the life that is actually yours. The fourth signal is the envy that is really recognition. The specific quality of feeling that arises when you see someone living in a way that your blueprint told you was not for you. Not envy of their possessions or their status. Envy of their permission. Of the fact that they seem to have given themselves permission to live in a way that your subconscious tells you is not available to someone like you. That envy is information. It is the subconscious pointing toward what it actually wants. Whose life are you living? This is the question that the subconscious most needs the conscious mind to ask. And it is the question that most people never ask directly, because asking it directly requires a quality of honesty that is genuinely uncomfortable. It requires looking at the specific choices that have built the current life, the career path, the relationship structure, the financial priorities, the daily rhythms, the definition of what a successful day looks like, and asking of each one, did I choose this, or did I absorb it? Is this mine? Or is it someone else's that I have been faithfully executing as if it were my own for many people? The answer is uncomfortable. The career that was chosen because it matched a parent's definition of a respectable profession. The relationship structure that was built because it matched the culture's definition of what a proper life looks like at this age. The financial priorities that reflect the specific anxieties of the family that formed you rather than what you actually value. The daily rhythms that were inherited rather than chosen. The definition of success that was given before you were old enough to construct your own. None of this is said to generate regret about the past. The past was built from what was available, from the programs that were running, from the genuine best effort of someone who had not yet had the opportunity to examine the blueprint they had been given. It is said to create the possibility of a different future, because the blueprint can be examined now. It can be questioned now, and where it does not match what is genuinely yours, it can be updated now. Carl Jung spent his life studying what he called the process of individuation. The gradual emergence of the genuine self from beneath the layers of what the environment required the person to be. He observed that most people spend the first half of their lives building the life that their family and culture and circumstances required of them, building the persona, the socially acceptable presentation of self that earns the approval and belonging that are necessary for survival in the social world. And he observed that at some point, often in midlife, but sometimes earlier or later, a specific kind of pressure begins to build from beneath the persona. A pressure that Jung associated with the genuine self, the authentic identity that was never fully expressed because the persona required something different. This pressure manifests as precisely the signals we discussed earlier, the achievement that does not satisfy, the Sunday feeling, the life imagined in quiet moments, the envy that is really recognition. Jung called this the call to individuation, the invitation from the deeper self to stop building the life that was required and begin building the life that is genuinely yours. He understood that answering this call was the most important work available to a human being. Not because the life that was required was wrong, but because living exclusively from the requirements of others, without ever turning toward the genuine self and asking what it actually wants and values and needs, is a specific form of loss. the loss of the life that was uniquely possible for this particular person. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are, not who you were required to be, not who the blueprint specified, who you actually are, beneath every program that was given to you before you had any say in the matter. Why do most people continue living someone else's life even when the subconscious has been signaling for years that something is wrong? The answer is fear. But a specific kind of fear that is rarely named directly, not the fear of failure, not the fear of the unknown, the fear of disappointing the people whose blueprint you have been following. The parent who built their sense of vicarious success on the child living the life they specified, the culture that has specific and powerful enforcement mechanisms for people who deviate from its approved definitions of a good life, the partner or family whose own sense of stability is partly dependent on you continuing to occupy the role you have been playing, the community whose approval has been part of the reward for living the required life. Turning toward your own life, genuinely examining the blueprint and beginning to build from a different one, means risking all of that, and the subconscious, which was programmed in the earliest years of life with the understanding that belonging requires conformity, experiences that risk as a genuine survival threat, not a metaphorical one, a neurological one. The belonging preservation program activates, and it generates the thoughts and feelings that return the person to the safety of the required life. You cannot just leave everything and live for yourself. That is selfish. That is unrealistic. You have responsibilities. You are too old for this. What would people think? Each of these thoughts feels like wisdom, like the responsible voice of maturity. But each of them is the belonging preservation program protecting the required life at the cost of the genuine one. I want to address something directly, because the most common resistance to claiming your own life is the belief that doing so is selfish, that prioritizing your genuine values and genuine needs over the expectations of others is a form of self-indulgence that comes at others' expense. This belief is one of the most powerful tools the belonging preservation program has for keeping you in the required life. And it is not accurate. There's a profound difference between selfishness and authenticity. Selfishness is the disregard of others' genuine needs in pursuit of one's own desires. Authenticity is the claiming of one's own genuine life without the disregard of others' genuine needs. These are not the same thing. And the confusion between them is what keeps most people in lives that are not theirs. Here is what the research on authenticity and relationships consistently shows. People who are living genuinely authentic lives, who have done the work of identifying and building toward what is actually theirs, are better partners, better parents, better friends, better colleagues, not because they give more, because what they give is genuine. The person living someone else's life gives from a place of depletion and resentment, from the specific exhaustion of someone who has been performing rather than living. The person living their own life gives from a place of genuine resource, from the overflow of someone who is genuinely alive. Claiming your own life is not selfish. It is the most generous thing you can do for the people you love, because it gives them access to the genuine version of you, rather than the performed version that the required life produces. Now let us talk about how to actually identify what is genuinely yours, because this is where the work gets specific, and specific is where real change becomes possible. The first practice is what I call the values archaeology. This is the deliberate excavation of the values that are genuinely yours, beneath the layers of the values that were given to you. It begins with a simple but demanding question. What would I value if no one whose opinion I cared about would ever know? Not what do I think I should value? Not what do I say I value when asked? What would I genuinely pursue, genuinely protect? genuinely organize my time and energy around? If the social consequence of my choices were completely removed from the equation, the answers that arise to this question with genuine honesty are often surprising. They are often simpler than the values the blueprint specified. They are often more specific, more personal, more difficult to explain to someone who has not done the same excavation. They are also often the things that generate the most genuine sense of aliveness when you are briefly in contact with them. The second practice is the aliveness audit. For 1 week, you track the specific moments when you feel most genuinely alive, not most successful, not most productive, not most approved of, most alive. The specific quality of presence and engagement and genuine interest that arrives when you are doing something that is genuinely yours. Write these moments down every day without editing them for social acceptability. At the end of the week, look at the list. The pattern that emerges is a map of your genuine life, the life the subconscious has been trying to point you toward all along. Once you have begun to identify what is genuinely yours, the work becomes the subconscious installation of a new blueprint, not through the dramatic abandonment of the required life overnight. That approach rarely works and often creates more damage than the required life it was trying to escape. But through the patient, daily, consistent practice of giving the subconscious a new set of instructions, the new instructions say, "This is what I actually value. This is the direction I am genuinely moving. This is the life that is actually mine," every morning. In the theta window after waking, you spend 10 minutes in the felt experience of the life that is genuinely yours, not a fantasy. A specific, grounded, genuinely felt experience of what your days would look like if the blueprint that was running them was yours rather than someone else's. What would you do with your mornings? What work would feel like genuine expression rather than performance? What relationships would feel like genuine connection rather than obligation? What would your body feel like in a life that was genuinely yours? Hold this experience in the theta state for 10 minutes. With genuine emotional engagement, not performance, not wishful thinking. The genuine felt sense of what it would be like to inhabit your own life. The subconscious receives this as instruction. And it begins slowly, with the patience of a river finding its course, to organize your perceptions and your instincts and your automatic choices around the new blueprint, not overnight, not without consistent daily practice, but genuinely, neurologically, permanently. The subconscious installation is supported by action, specifically by the daily practice of taking one small action that belongs to the genuine life rather than to the required one. Not a dramatic gesture, not the burning of the current life to the ground, one small genuine action every day. The person whose genuine life involves creative work creates for 15 minutes before the required life begins. The person whose genuine values include solitude and reflection protects 30 minutes of genuine quiet in a life that the required blueprint filled with noise. The person whose genuine life involves a different kind of relationship with their work takes one small step today toward that different relationship. Not the whole journey, one step. Each small genuine action does two things simultaneously. It builds the neural pathway of the new identity. The identity of someone who is living their own life rather than someone else's. And it gives the subconscious experiential evidence that the genuine life is not just a felt experience in the theta window. It is real. It is being built. It is actually possible. The evidence compounds, the neural pathway strengthens, and the gap between the required life and the genuine one begins gradually to close, not through dramatic rupture, through the patient accumulation of genuine choices, one at a time, every day. History is full of people who recognized at some point that they were living someone else's life and made the decision to return to their own. Henry David Thoreau walked into the woods at Walden Pond not because he hated the world, but because he was determined to discover whether the life he was living was genuinely his. He wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not when I came to die discover that I had not lived." He was describing the specific fear of the person who has been living someone else's life. The fear of arriving at the end and discovering that the life lived was not the one that was genuinely possible. Paul Gauguin walked away from the successful career as a stockbroker at 35 to pursue painting by the standards of the required life he had been living. This was irrational, irresponsible, a failure. By the standards of the genuine life his subconscious had been pointing toward for years. It was the first genuinely rational decision he had ever made. He went on to create some of the most celebrated paintings in the history of Western art, not because he abandoned responsibility, but because he finally accepted the responsibility that was genuinely his, the responsibility to live the life that was actually his to live. Maya Angelou found her genuine voice through writing, and through that genuine voice, gave millions of people the permission to find their own. She wrote, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." She was describing the specific suffering of the person whose genuine life, whose genuine self, whose genuine story has not yet been lived. That suffering is not inevitable. It is the signal, the subconscious pointing toward what needs to change. I want to describe what becomes possible when you begin to live the life that is genuinely yours. Not the life you imagine in a fantasy of complete freedom from all responsibility, but the specific quality of life that becomes available when the blueprint you are building from is genuinely yours rather than someone else's. The first thing that becomes possible is genuine energy. The specific quality of vitality that arises when the life you are living is in genuine alignment with what you actually value. Not the manic energy of avoidance or the brittle energy of caffeine and urgency. The sustainable, renewable, genuinely available energy of someone who is spending their days on what is actually theirs. The second thing that becomes possible is genuine contribution. Because the person who is living their genuine life is not performing contribution, they are contributing from the specific place where their genuine gifts meet the world's genuine needs. And that intersection, when it is real, produces a quality of contribution that performance can never match. The third thing that becomes possible is genuine relationship. Because the person who is living their genuine life is not performing themselves in their relationships. They are present, actually present, in the way that only becomes possible when you are not simultaneously managing the gap between who you are and who the required life needs you to be. And genuine presence is the foundation of genuine connection. The fourth thing that becomes possible is the specific quality of peace that comes from genuine alignment, not the peace of resignation, not the peace of having given up. The peace of someone who is genuinely inhabiting their own life, who goes to sleep at night in a life that is actually theirs, and wakes up in the morning to a day that belongs to them. Let us come back to where we began. There is a life that belongs to you, and your subconscious has known it all along in the Sunday feeling, in the achievement that did not satisfy, in the life imagined in the quiet moments, in the envy that was really recognition, in every signal it has been sending, in the only language available to a subconscious that is running a program telling it that the genuine life is not safe to pursue. The program was installed before you could question it, by people who loved you and gave you the only blueprint they had, and you have been building from it faithfully ever since. The values archaeology that reveals what is genuinely yours beneath what was given. the aliveness audit that maps the moments when the genuine life briefly surfaces. The morning theta practice that installs the new blueprint at the level where the subconscious actually operates. And the daily small genuine action that builds the neural pathway of someone who is living their own life, one step at a time, one genuine choice at a time, one day at a time. Thoreau went to the woods because he did not want to arrive at death and discover he had not lived. You do not have to go to the woods, you simply have to begin with the honest question, with the values archaeology, with the one small genuine action today that belongs to your life rather than to someone else's. Your subconscious already knows which action that is. It has always known. It has been waiting for the conscious mind to finally ask. Subscribe to Awake Mind. I will see you in the next one.